All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning for the Public Engagement Training Content Microgram program Welcome Roundtable. We're just going to do a couple of quick introductions at the beginning, presentation about the program itself, and then the second half of the hour, we're going to really focus on having a roundtable discussion about your projects. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. If you're in DC, it's really cold. If you're not in DC, I'm jealous. All right, so let's get started. White, if you could hit the next slide. All right, so a brief introduction for us. We are the civic science team over at Research America. I'll have each of us introduce ourselves, starting with Jenny, myself, and then Wyatt, and then have some opening remarks from Jenny Lorraine.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. Central PA, yes, I'm sure that's pretty cold there as well. I'm Jenny LeRae. I've been with Research America for 6 years, and I'm part of our leadership team. In addition to working on our public engagement, civic science programs, I also lead our communications team. And you can imagine how busy we are with everything happening to the federal agencies. My background is really in public policy, both in government, and I worked for two large life science companies doing government affairs and public policy. So you can see a little bit about my background, and I'm going to hand it over to my two colleagues. I'm going to make some opening remarks, and then unfortunately I'm going to need to go because of what's happening in Washington. But know that we are fighting hard to keep the research funding coming. So Lori, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Jenny. So hello, everyone. Again, my name is Lori Zabala. I am the Senior Manager of Science Initiatives and Outreach at Research America. I've always been corresponding with all of you already, so you should be familiar with me. I oversee both our civic engagement microgrant program and this brand new public engagement content training program. I have a multidisciplinary background. I got in both the social sciences and also the life sciences. Most recently, I got my master's degree in integrative neuroscience at Georgetown University. I started out at Research America as a science communication intern while I was doing my graduate program at Georgetown. And then I did a stint over at AAAS in science policy, and then now I'm back at Research America running our civic engagement programs. And then now I'll turn it over to Wyatt.
Hi, I'm Wyatt Elsner. I'm the civic science intern. I just recently got my BS in cognitive and behavioral neuroscience from UCSD, and I have communicated with all of you already, and we'll be dealing with all of the logistical questions that you have. And if you ever have questions, feel free to email me. I know most of you already have. So yeah, hi.
We are so excited about this program. This is the inaugural year. You're going to learn a little bit about our other civic engagement program, which we're now in our 7th year, and that's project-based. But this was an idea that came out of a public engagement working group. We pulled together about 20 folks, university leaders, practitioners of public engagement and science communication, to talk about, okay, what are the actionable steps that we can take to make this kind of work more normative and better accepted within traditional academia? And so one of the ideas was, well, let's experiment. Let's find some money and have some folks develop some curriculum. I mean, we know that there are a number of science comp courses. There's also some courses in science policy for scientists, but we thought there was a lot of creativity out there to tap. And so the Lasker Foundation stepped up, which was terrific. And then the Dana Foundation later came in to fund projects that are more focused on neuroscience. I've read all of your applications. They're fabulous. We had no idea how many applications we were going to get since it was so new. I was bowled over because we had over 50. So it was a very tough choice. So know that the competition was stiff. Um, and we're just so excited. Lori will share at the end some ideas we have about how to help, showcase the work that you're doing. So we're certainly open to ideas about that. Um, this is a kind of a learning lab, right? Um, some of you maybe have never put together a course before. So we're here to help you. And we work with a lot of folks in academia who are real leaders in this space and can also, provide some additional mentoring from them if needed. But they're very excited. I'm talking about people like Anthony Duda and uh, uh, who else? The folks at Cornell, Bruce, who has run a science comm program at Cornell for many years, Dietram Schuffley, who leads a big science comm and public engagement program at Wisconsin. So I've let folks know about this effort, and they're excited to see what you all come up with. So I'm going to leave you in the hands of Lori and Wyatt, and feel free to reach out to me at any time. I think my email is on the last slide, but we're just so excited that you stepped up to this challenge. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Right. So a little background about Research America. We are an alliance organization of about currently 300 members. The mission of Research America is we are an alliance that advocates for science discovery and innovation to achieve better health for all. And I think Wyatt will drop a link in the chat of who our member organizations are, so you can take a look at them. As you'll see, they span the gamut of the life sciences enterprise, from academia to patient groups that represent patients, pharmaceutical companies, state and local nonprofits. So we really span the entire life sciences ecosystem. Next slide. So now that we introduced ourselves, this is your opportunity to tell us who you are. Like I said at the top, we will have a dedicated towards the second half of the hour to having more deeper discussion on your actual projects. So if you could keep this bit pretty brief, especially that last bit where it says, tell us about your curriculum developing, like a 30-second soundbite, that would be great. Any volunteers? Otherwise, I'll just randomly call on the screen.
I don't mind going first.
Great, Thaisa. Is it if I'm pronouncing your name correctly? Okay, great.
That's exactly right. Yep. Thaisa or Ty, either one works with me. And thanks so much for having me here. I am coming, my dot is in Nevada, that upper corner of Nevada. I come from Reno, Nevada, and I attend the University of Reno, Nevada. A little bit about my project. Our project is we're building a curriculum focused on health literacy specifically for our juvenile detention facility out here. We're already in the pilot stage now, and we're developing what it is that we'll be kind of recruiting the additional help where the Research America money will be going towards. So I'm excited to workshop that with you later. But yeah, it's been a fun ride for the pilot, let me tell you. So I'm super excited to get it off the ground for the real thing. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great, Thaisa. I will just jump in really quickly and mention that on the civic engagement microgrant program side, there is a group. They're actually last year they were awarded a microgrant. This year they also got awarded another microgrant to continue their project. They're called STEM Unbarred, and they bring science curriculum to juvenile centers in Washington, D.C. Because they don't get the science curriculum in the juvenile detention centers don't have hands-on science experiments. So that's what that group does, brings hands-on science experiments to supplement their science curriculum at the detention facilities. Yeah, so if you're interested, I can connect you with them because you guys probably have a lot in common.
Yep, I would love that. Yeah, the only thing we're allowed is real human brains. So we definitely bring those and teach anatomy, physiology, and some other stuff. But yeah, we're a little limited with what we can bring. But if others have done it, we might swing that too.
Yeah, shoot me an email after the roundtable to remind me, and then I'll see about connecting you with that group. All right, who's next?
I'm happy to go.
Great.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Spence. I am at Virginia Tech. I'm the little dot in Southwest Virginia, so not up by DC, but it's snowing and very cold today as well. And I'm developing a module to help. My background is more of a STEAM, if you include the A for agriculture, and social and behavioral sciences. And I'm developing a module to aid researchers, extension agents, and scientists on translating impact statements with storytelling components for public engagement.
Great, thank you. Next.
I can go. Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie, and I'm at the University of Utah, so that little dot in Utah. My STEM background is biology and neuroscience. And the thing that I am hoping to do, which I've already started on, is that it's a two-parter. So the first parter is the SciComm hackathon. One thing I will note about the state of Utah is that our universities are a little divided. And so I wanted to find something that could bring our universities together and have more students participate. Especially those universities that don't have SciComm programs or SciComm clubs. So it's us, Utah Valley University, and then BYU. And so the hackathon will kind of have them submit projects that they think that they can communicate their science better to us. And it can be in several different formats. And then we have a team that will kind of choose the top 6 finalists. And then we'll plan an event called our SciComm Symposium. So it's the Utah SciComm Symposium, and we'll invite those finalists to present their projects. We also invited speakers in the field from all different forms of where policy and outreach can be. So at the University of Utah, at the museums, we have a TEDx speaker coming as well. So we're just trying to show people that there's a lot more things that you can do with science communication. And we're also inviting the public to this event too. And so hopefully they'll be able to see what's going on. And at the very end, it's just a big discussion for scientists and the community to come together.
That's really awesome. I like how inclusive it is, and you're opening it up to the public. We will iterate this later on in the presentation part, but while you're doing your projects, especially Jacqueline, yours sounds very conducive to like taking photos and having documentation, videos, and whatnot of the as you're going along. Definitely take those different kinds of media and send those over to us, because we would love to promote the work that you all are doing.
Yeah, of course.
Next.
I
can go next.
Oh, go for it.
Go. All right. I'm Pat O'Neill. I'm a second-year PhD student in Human Development and Family Studies at Penn State. So I'm the little dot in Center PA. It's 15 and feels like 9 degrees here today. So even a little colder than DC. My STEM background, I'm a clinical psychology undergrad and master's at Columbia before coming to Penn State. And a little bit about the curriculum. It kind of fits into my broader field of study in terms of integrating research into policymaking activities. And so I'm creating a couple of training modules highlighting both previous issues in this field and one of the modules focused on an intervention model for getting policymakers to use more science.
Great, thank you.
I think I'm the last one. But hi, everyone. My name is Justine. I'm in Southern California, so I can't complain too much about the cold. It'll be a high of 71 today. So I'm the northernmost dot in California, which isn't very north. My background, so I did forensic chemistry and biotechnology, but now I'm a second-year PhD student at University of California, Irvine, where I study Alzheimer's disease in individuals with Down syndrome. And before that, I was a brain donation coordinator for 4 years. So I went out and helped families with brain donations for our research, and I worked intimately with those families, which sparked my project for this, which is a two-parter module where I'm both doing an empathy training segment as well as a best practices in brain donation. Over the course of the 4 years, I've heard horror stories from families and also lack of optimal best practices when it comes to this very generous donation from others. And I want to do a better job at bringing systemically people together from brain donation programs and teaching them, one, how to best meet a family and talk with them through a very hard time where there's very limited training in this sector. And also when it comes to research, making sure that we're doing everything possible from our end that makes it that this donation can be used in the best optimal way in research itself. At the moment, there's no standardization across America. And also it's a really sensitive topic that I really hope us controlling at a systemic level will help families and make sure that the worst day of their life isn't the worst day of their life. But nice to meet you guys. Happy to talk with you all later.
Thank you, Justine. I did my research in Alzheimer's disease as well. Have you heard of the African American Neuroscience Research Initiative? Okay, great. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you haven't, definitely look them up because they're doing something similar, but partnering up with faith-based organizations over in like the Maryland, Johns Hopkins area to increase the donations of African American brains to brain donation banks. So
That's a great suggestion. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. All of your projects are very, very fascinating and interesting, and we'll get into more of talking about more of them in a little bit. Here's a couple more slides to orient you to the program. So every year, Research America commissions a public opinion poll survey to get a temperature gauge on where the public is and on their understanding of science. This is from last year's data set. We just released this year's data set recently, but the numbers are still reflective. It hasn't changed too much. As you can see on the slide, the overwhelming majority of Americans believe that communicating their research to the public should be part of a scientist's job, right? And there's overwhelming bipartisan support as well. Next slide. At the same time, in the last couple of years, when respondents were asked, do you think the work that scientists benefits you? We've seen a declining share of Americans who believe that scientists' work does benefit them. Next slide. And so that's why there's all this talk and focus on civic engagement. And basically the goals of civic engagement is keeping in mind the public wants scientists to communicate about their research, and there's a declining share of Americans who think that science benefits them. Civic engagement is so important. And the simple way of thinking about civic engagement is working together to improve your communities, to have impact in your community life. And that can be via political and non-political processes. Next slide. This is a quote from Dr. Alondra Nelson. She was formerly at the White House OSCP, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, I believe, if I have that acronym right. Because too often in our history and our present, science and technology policy exists adjacent to communities rather than being informed by them. This disconnect lies at the heart of so many challenges we face as a global community. And so the public engagement content training that you all are developing, hopefully you're taking that into account. You know, a lot of times there's this term helicopter or parachuting in. That's when experts kind of fly into a community, drop their knowledge, or do science things with the community and then they leave. And that is how a lot of distrust is formed. You really want to use trusted messengers. You want to have community members at the table when it comes to science, so that you can have this long-term relationship building. Next slide. All right. So Research America is really, I would say, one of the pioneers of civic engagement with science. Some of you may have heard the term civic science, public engagement science, and they're all synonymous, right? The civic engagement microgrant program that I mentioned earlier, that's the one that Jenny said was now in our 7th year. So that started in 2018, and we basically provide grants to groups of early career researchers, masters, PhD students, postdocs, professional students, and we support them in projects that are in public engagement with science. So science communication, science policy, science outreach. And the goal is to elevate the importance of science, public health, and innovation in their communities and have local impact. All of the activities are also strictly nonpartisan. Research America is a nonprofit, and we are nonpartisan. So the projects we support, both in that program and in your work that you do, must also be strictly nonpartisan. And if you have any questions about that, what that is, we can, when we open it up to discussion, feel free to ask your questions about that. Next slide. All right. So as Jenny had mentioned, this program was funded by the Lasker Foundation, and then the Dana Foundation also stepped in. Through the program, we would love to be able to allow scientists to explore new and innovative approaches in training for public engagement. And the rationale behind that, as Jenny said, is we want to make public engagement training more normative in graduate STEM education. Because right now, as you all as graduate students know, there are gaps in public engagement education for you all, right? It's very rare to have science policy, science communication courses, anything like that as part of your graduate training. And we also want to make this training content available to the broader STEM community, which is, if you recall, when you applied, we emphasize that the content you develop needs to be publicly accessible. That way, other people who are interested in this content can learn from you and hopefully replicate your programs at their own universities. Again, this point is very important, which is why it's on the slide again, as it was on the other side. Your activities must be strictly nonpartisan. Next slide. All right, so a couple of deliverables. So internally, actually, White, I'll have you talk about the first couple of bullets. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you guys are going to have 2 deliverables for us, which are going to be a progress report and a final report, the first being due on April 7th and the final report being due on July 26th. A form will be circulated about 3 weeks prior to the due date of the reports, and it shouldn't be that intensive or take you that long. And then at the end, you will have to do oral presentations to fellow awardees just about your projects. Externally, we want to do a webinar to present your content to others in the field of public engagement, and then a published summary of your work. Lori, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. So I'll go back to the oral presentation part. So that webinar or meeting is going to, virtual meeting is going to be mandatory. We have 12 awardees for this program. Only 6 of you could show up for today. The timing didn't work out for the others, but that one will be mandatory. And by June, you guys should have all progressed enough that you have a good amount to report on the progress of what you've done, what the status of your curriculum is at now. Basically an oral presentation on it to your fellow awardees. Externally, so the webinar, we will invite, as Jenny had mentioned, because Research America has engaged in this public engagement training work, it has a strong presence in the community of practitioners in there. So we will invite those who are active in the field of public engagement, and this will be a webinar specifically for that audience. And not everybody, it's not mandatory for everybody. We will select amongst the 12 awardees amongst you guys of who will present for that webinar. So the oral presentation, that will be internal to us, so it'll be a closed meeting like this. The webinar, that will be public. And then the bottom bullet of published summary of your work. So we're being very loose and flexible with where you publish. It doesn't have to be a journal. Like there's a Journal of Science Communication. There's other journals out there where you can get this peer reviewed and published. But if you get it published on a blog, on we're very open as long as it's publicized and written somewhere. Next slide. All right, White, I'll have you do this one, and I believe we're coming up on the end of the presentation, right? Okay.
We are, yeah. So for your public engagement training content microgrants, your plans can change, and that's expected. This is you're expected to experiment and do what you need to create your programs. And but if there are any changes in your contact information, please let us know right away, either email us individually or via the microgrants email, so we can limit gaps in communication. And speaking about communication, it's our expectation, both for ourselves and for you guys, that we respond to emails within 3 business days. Usually, if you send us something, we'll get it to you much faster than that. And if there's ever a gap where it gets lost in one of our inboxes, feel free just to send another message saying, hey, can you take a look at this? And then, as Lori mentioned earlier, we really want to highlight the work you're doing. So if your work is conducive to taking photos of events or infographics or any of that stuff, please send it to us or tag us on Instagram, and we'll be happy to repost on a story or do a joint post with you. Yeah, or just send it to me. Send photos to me, and I'll be happy to make posts on our Instagram to highlight your work. If you have any questions, again, you can email that Microgrants email or my email directly. And then just to reach out to us, the Microgrants email is right here. It gets both Lori and I can see those messages. Or you can email Lori or myself directly for smaller things. And Jenny's email is also there if you have any questions for her. Lori, you want to take away for questions?
Sure. All right, so I think let's take down this slide, stop sharing screen, and then so we can see the whole gallery.
Great.
Perfect. Okay, so now we'll open, as I said during the second half of the hour, we'll open it up for well, first I'll start off with questions, and then we can get into just this free discussion about your projects. So does anybody have any immediate questions that they really need or want addressed?
I had a quick question regarding payments. So right now I'm setting up I know we're waiting for the payments to come through, but I'm setting up a system to actually pay because I'll be hiring help essentially to put together this curriculum from other graduate students. So a way I've been kind of thinking about tracking is making Zelle payments to individuals. So that way I have that, confirmation that I was able to send X amount of money on this date to this individual. Is that kind of the way everybody else is thinking about this? Or yeah, kind of how are you conceptualizing the payment portion for this?
I think that question sounded like it was to the group, because and I will make sure that this is clear. We will not require, as part of your progress report or your final report, any budget or accounting. This is not to distinguish this program from the Civic Engagement Microgrant program. That is a grant.
Right.
The monetary payment you guys are receiving is an award. It's the equivalent, like an honorarium, right? Which is why we had you fill out, like, the IRS forms and all that.
Okay, great. Because yeah, I just wanted to confirm because I'm like trying to put in my head, like I know it's not going through sponsored projects like the other one. We were a recipient of the other one as well, and I know that one is super excited. I'm not the lead on that, thank God, because I'm like this is going to be a huge undertaking as it is. But yeah, I was a little concerned about the accounting portion, so I appreciate you answering that. That helps.
Just curious, Taysa, what year were you a Microgrant grantee?
The civic one, actually, this is our first year. We just got that one.
Oh, wait. So you're also part of a group that got a microgrant for this year? Oh,
Yes.
Sorry, which group is that?
We're the Nevada Brain Bee that's doing the Brain Bee in person for the first time and bringing in our rurals. The focus of that one is specifically to engage our rural communities to actually come to campus and do tours and actually visit what it would be like to be at that university and encourage them essentially to kind of not only attend the university, but also get engaged with the neuroscience program that's happening over there. So I'm not the lead on that one, which is really nice because that one is a huge undertaking. But yeah, so we're excited for that one as well. That's why I just wanted to confirm how the accounting portion would look for this.
Oh,
but
okay, great.
The award part makes sense.
Yeah, that's well, that's wonderful that you're part of both programs. So you can see, like, experience both opportunities, what the differences are. That's wonderful. Yes, so if that wasn't clear, no budget for this one. It's an honorarium. This is we selected individuals, whereas the other program, that is a grant to groups, and they have to give us a budget. So however you guys want to do your accounting, it's up to you.
Thank you so
much. Any other questions? Okay, well, if any questions come along as we go through the rest of the hour, then feel free to pipe up. So now we'll just focus on your actual specific projects themselves and get to know more about your projects and where you are, what the status of it at this point. If everybody could just kind of give a round robin of you've already done a brief overview of what your projects are, and from that brief overview, I was able to ascertain largely who your target audiences are. But just to be clear, if you could explain to the group for your individual projects, who are the target audiences for your projects?
I can go first. So mine, just as a brief reminder, because I know we kind of sped through it. So mine's the brain donation module. And so my target audience would be to brain donation programs and their staff. So faculty, brain donation coordinators, anyone who works in the lab itself, just so everyone's on the same page on what the best practices are, but also how to engage with the public, which is a massive point in this whole thing where same with the group over on the East Coast, we want to make sure we're engaging with diverse individuals, but also just individuals from the same family even, but it's a real bummer when somebody's met with really bad attitudes, or it's almost bothersome is what I've heard. And I've worked with a lot of families in my time, even some from charities who have come in, and I do brain donation demonstrations or brain demos, and I teach them about the brain and disease. And more times than not, they tell me about a bad story or a bad encounter with brain donation programs, not communicating with them, not meeting them with empathy, kind of just treating their loved one not with the same respect as if they were alive, which is really, really upsetting and sad. And just trying to prevent that. So I felt like the best way we can do these great practices and make sure that we're treating people with kindness and respect is by helping ameliorate this systemically in brain donation programs. So in order to engage with the public. So hopefully this will grow a little more into, our local community leaders, and we're able to meet them at a different point with different religions, different cultures, all those things that make us unique and awesome. So yeah, that's a little bit about our target audience. Did you want me to go on any other part of my project?
I think for now we'll keep it
Okay.
to there. I also wanted to put a plug. You're at UCI, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the DC metro area now, but I grew up in Southern California, so yeah.
Oh, nice, nice. Do you miss it at all?
And I miss the weather. I think we've already just touched upon that, and the food. I gotta tell you guys, like Southern California has some of the best food, like Asian food, Hispanic food. It's not
I
as
will
food.
say, yeah, I went to school in Buffalo, New York. So for 5 years, so I do understand the snow, guys. I know it really well. And I'm feeling all y'all. I hope you guys are staying warm.
Great, thanks, Justine. All right, who wants to talk about their target audience next?
I can go next. Also, Justine, I'm from Syracuse, New York, so I know exactly what you mean about the upstate New York weather. And sorry if you saw me smirking when you were talking. I saw Thaisa's cat popping in. I have a cat at home, and if I was taking the meeting from home, he'd be doing the exact same thing. So I was getting a kick out of that. But so my target audience is researchers themselves. So my team at Penn State, we do a lot of work on the implementation and evaluation of research translation models for increasing the use of research evidence in policymaking. And one aspect of that is building and maintaining a network of researchers across many different topic areas that are, at various institutions and think tanks. Right now, our network is just over 1,000 researchers, and so that's the target audience for these modules. And I'll be using the entire network as my sample for the evaluation of these modules.
Well, that is a great sample size for your evaluation. That's awesome.
Yeah, and they cover various topic areas, everything from like child and family research to cancer research, substance use, so a wide topic area as well.
Excellent. All right, who's next?
Happy to go. So my target audience is researchers and scientists. It's starting in the agricultural field, but I hope that my module will be applicable to all fields. And so working on impact statements or Hatch Act statements that all faculty with research appointments and scientists need to write, and working on that existing resource and how to curate that for public engagement and science communication, both on social media and with a storytelling lens. And so I'm piloting that with our online agricultural graduate program at Virginia Tech. So that's where it's starting from. And I also would like it to be applicable to extension agents. So that's that kind of agricultural piece. But the intent is to be broad enough where it's applicable to any scientist or researcher.
Actually, I'll have to email me after this roundtable, Jessica. There's like a professor, I'm blanking out on his name, but he is also in the agricultural field, and he is like a master at social media and communicating agriculture in there. So like I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'll send you his information and LinkedIn so you kind of can look at the stuff that he puts on his like X and all his social media, because he's great at it.
Yeah, I'll shoot you an email. That'd be great. Thank you.
I can go next. Okay, so I guess it's targeting a few different peoples depending on what part of the timeline you're in, but in the beginning, it's going to be first targeting grad students. We found that their grad students, at least at the universities here surrounding us, they felt like there's a lack of just how to get involved in science communication and policy. So we want to offer them this opportunity to submit their ideas and their projects and how to communicate their research to the public. And then we will have training sessions with them with professionals from the field. And then they're invited then to this public event. So now we're including the public into this. And we want to be able to just have them share their projects with the public and how better to engage. We'll have also keynote speakers that talk about how everybody can get involved better, not only the scientist side, but also the public side. And then at the very end, we'll compile those projects that those students submitted. And I'm working with the Biomedical Research Education Office here at the University of Utah. And so they want to have like a dedicated webpage where we can showcase all these things about the event. Definitely taking advice on how to more formally put this into a toolkit. We looked into many options because we want this to reach more people, right? We want to have like a website or something or send this out to somebody. Money got in the way of that a little bit, having to maintain that. So yeah, that's kind of the trajectory of what my event looks like.
Great, thank you guys. I'm also curious, what inspired you individually to develop your projects? I had mentioned earlier that this public engagement training isn't currently part of graduate STEM curriculum, right? So I'm curious, like, how did it come about that you got interested in this field, and then why you specifically then decided, okay, I'm going to create a curriculum myself.
I can start off again if you want. So mine was through experience, and just being in the same room as all these families, you start to feel like you're part of it. And here at UCI, we've been told a lot of times that we really do it right, which I take a lot of pride in. And on top of that, in the world of Alzheimer's disease, 92% of our cohorts are white. And even though I'm working this hard doing research, I'm not doing research that applies to my family directly. When you look at genetic linkage and you look at, again, everything that makes us unique. But where I really decided to do it, we have a charity out here in Southern California called Hilarity for Charity. It's ran by Seth Rogen and his wife. And his wife actually came in with podcasters, and for some reason it's escaping me what their podcast name is, but it's two women who lost their parents with frontotemporal dementia, which, if anyone knows what that is, it's probably the most progressive and devastating disease that inherently changes your personality. So you can be like this family Christian man, goes to church every day, and then all of a sudden you leave your family, you gamble your life away, all that stuff. And I remember doing a brain donation or a brain demonstration for them, and one of them started crying when I started explaining what FTD was. And we stopped and this and that. She gave me a hug. She told me no one, even from the clinical side, put that in my perspective. So I was here kind of running through my life trying to figure out what the heck is happening to my parents. Then on top of that, when he passed away, I called 3 times. They didn't answer. They finally, picked up the phone, was like, "Oh, I don't know how long it's going to take. Can you just like throw ice on his head?" In that type of manner. And that was kind of when I was like, all right, this has happened too often, and now someone's right in my face. I feel like the world's telling me like really need to step up here. And we have such a good pipeline here at UCI. Plus, I've worked with people around the country. We coordinate brain donations from all types of states, and we really go out of our way. I'll be on the phone for 4 or 5 hours trying to get a brain, and we don't lose them. We really try our best. And I feel like if everyone gave that much respect to people, the world would be a better place in that way, both research and just empathy wise, which, in my opinion, is lacking a lot in the US, or in the world, I suppose. So yeah, so it was a very personal thing for me, just being so connected to this population, but now having the opportunity as a graduate student and these pathways. So thank you guys for opening this pathway through Research America. I feel like we can really make a difference.
Thank you for sharing that, Justine. Who wants to go next?
I can go, but it's hard to follow up, Justine. That's wonderful and incredible motivation. And I think you're doing great work. Mine, all three of my degrees are pursuing in agricultural communications. And so I've been working with improving science communication, and now more than ever, people distrust science and scientists. And so I think it's really important to help give scientists who especially may want to be back in the lab and not want to be engaging the public. That's not what they signed up for, but they're supposed to be the voice of trust and are the ones generating new information. And it's really important to me to build that trust. And an angle I've taken is storytelling, and that really helps the public relate to anything. It helps us relate to one another, and helping the public relate to scientists and scientific outcomes. So that's kind of my motivation for this little microgrant.
I can go. Very similar idea what Jessica was saying. I was saying like this is kind of needed more than ever, right? SciComm and policy, and really strong initiatives there. A lot of my stuff that I've done in terms of outreach has really been targeting very young communities, and I find a lot of joy doing that. And so we have a couple of programs like that here in Utah. And, whenever I'm writing my grants and everything, I always kind of add in there, like, I want to be able to mentor the next generation of scientists. And I realized that we really don't have those initiatives, at least here in Utah, from a graduate student level. And so I wanted to try to tackle that next. So kind of how this event came to fruition. And I'm also now recently doing my graduate certificate or teaching certificate in higher ed. And that's what really, got me to pivot. Like I'm already almost in my 6th year of my PhD, and it's like making that decision that feels really fulfilling too, of like, this really feels like the right place. And I feel like I can make a difference here, and I can see myself mentoring scientists through this way.
I can follow up. So I became interested in this field of science communication and policymaking as a post-bac with my team here at Penn State. And I originally wanted to go into clinical psychology, and realized kind of in my master's program that like the reach of science kind of gets caught up in academia, very siloed, publish or perish, you get X number of citations and that's your impact. And like that's not really, unless you're making, some like groundbreaking discovery or something, oftentimes we don't see that reach of science, the impact on the general population. And so that kind of led me to this area of science and policy, where we can have science inform policymaking and have them, produce more evidence-based policymaking compared to, especially nowadays, what feels like more just like feelings-based policy almost, or like belief-based policy. And so specifically with this microgrant, working with the intervention model that I'll be developing the modules around, I'm interested in, and I'm currently revising an F31 grant that would be like my dissertation work around this intervention model. And so it's just another step in testing this model and evaluating it before the, I guess, the bigger project, if you will.
Great, thanks, guys. It's always interesting to hear how your rationale for personally why you started this and why you got interested, and what your the curriculum you're developing becomes, right?
Sorry, I should also add that the reason I applied for this grant specifically, or became interested in it, was because I got a LinkedIn message from my advisor at 4:30 a.m. saying, "Hey, check out this program. You should think about applying to it." And like 3 days later, I did. So.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad that you said it was your advisor.
Yeah, one of my doctoral advisors, who I get emails and messages from at all hours of the day, was sending me something at 4 a.m. about the program.
A similar story, Dr. Leah Kalinsky-Jones here at VT sent it to our whole department, encouraging someone to apply. And so that's how I heard about it.
That's good.
Same here too at the U. They sent a mass email out to our department and was like, this is really cool.
Well, that's really encouraging. That one, it's coming from like advisors and faculty encouraging you to apply for this and put time and effort into this, because that's one of the challenges that has come up in doing any kind of civic science work is, to be frank, a reluctance from academia to support it, right? Because it's time away from the lab. You're like, what does this really have to do with my lab's research, right? So that's encouraging. I mean, there are faculty members who do support this kind of work, but it's not yet a consensus, right? That's awesome. I wanted to flag something that Wyatt had dropped into the chat. I think for about the past 2 years now, Research America has really leaned into this public engagement work, and 2 years ago, the organization did a landscape analysis of what's out there in terms of science communication courses, science policy courses, certificates, degrees. So that YouTube was the webinar that launched when that dashboard was completed. The dashboard basically, it was the work of a former fellow of ours who spent his first year putting together and scouring the internet for like what courses and certificates were out there at all levels, undergraduate, up through professional school. So I encourage you to at some point to like watch the video, visit the dashboard. That dashboard is still being updated. So as new courses come along, they'll be added there. So potentially when your course is completed, we could add your course to the dashboard so it's available for people to see what's out there. And it's also encouraging for you guys to be able to see like, okay, what other courses are out there at different universities? How are they formatting their curriculum and all that stuff? Let's see. Oh, and then Wyatt had just dropped into the link to the chat, the link directly to the dashboard. So, all right. So, I think one thing that I'm hearing from you guys is this theme of like science communication, distrust, and then for Patrick, for yours, it's like getting policymakers to incorporate evidence into decision making, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. Distrust in science is pretty pervasive. And then scientific misinformation and disinformation across social media. And, a lot of policymakers get their scientific information not from reading journals or even talking to scientists. They're probably just going on what they see on their own socials, right? So what do you all think is the scientist's role versus that of policymakers or social media sites in addressing the issues of distrust in science, scientific misinformation and disinformation on social media? You guys have any like thoughts on those?
Oh, sorry. Oh, everyone has thoughts. I think there's a lot of roles there, and I think most scientists maybe wouldn't want to take on a lot of those roles, which is a hard battle to fight also. But I think a big piece of that is right now, and increasingly so, scientists' roles are not to get defensive in reaction to the mistrust, but rather adapt and approach it in ways that appeal to people who lack trust. But I think it's really easy to be defensive and upset when someone's questioning your life's work and the intentions you have going into that. So I have empathy for that, but I think being less reactionary is a growing piece of scientists' responsibility, unfortunately.
Say, add that a couple of years ago, I attended SciComm. If any of you are familiar, ComSciCon, hello. ComSciCon, and it kind of taught, it was an amazing course to kind of teach how to take your science and communicate it out with the public. But like you mentioned, like other than external classes or courses or trainings like that it's just not part of the curriculum, which is kind of frustrating. So as a scientist, you have to go and seek out that kind of training yourself in order to, you know, be able to even talk about your science with other people. I mean, most of our, I just published a 36-page paper that most people would read, like just regular people would read, and they'd be like, I have no idea what this says. Like, this means nothing to me. And what I found kind of rewarding is working on other papers that are like, for example, if any of you are familiar with Frontiers for Young Minds, that takes a difficult concept and kind of brings it into the level, like how do you explain your science to an 8-year-old? So that was actually a lot harder than I thought, because I can speak to scientists, but I couldn't do that. And that's why I think kind of the role of the scientists in this case is to go out and seek those additional trainings yourself until they're made part of the curriculum. And what's the point of doing science if it doesn't kind of help society, or they can't even understand it and it's not accessible? I think that's that would be my 2 cents.
Very much agree with Tesa's mentioning of like making science accessible. I think what we can do is try to start breaking down barriers and making this more of an inclusive environment. So like for my thing, having the public be engaged and the public having a say in all these things, I think it's really helpful for us to hear them out too. I think there's not a lot of that communication, at least where I'm at here. And so you tend to get kind of stuck in your own like bubbles, right? And so to get a little bit uncomfortable, you got to break out of those bubbles and find some sort of common ground here.
What everyone else said, honestly. I was just going to kind of reiterate everything that they had come up with. It is our responsibility. As scientists, I think that I think it was lost at some point. I think we know better. We're getting this education, and with that understanding, not only is there supposed to be trust that we do science in the right way because we're professionals and this is what we decided to do, but on top of that, why are we doing the science in the first place? It's a very slim margin of people who are doing, even basic science is for the betterment of, the world, yourself, your neighbor. So I think we really strayed away from this huge component that should have been just as important as doing the science itself. And I think Jessica had said it the best when she was talking about her project, but some scientists almost like want to just hide in their lab and do their research and almost don't want to be bothered with it. I know I met a lot in my lifetime, and I'm sure I'm going to meet a lot more. So absolutely. And I also think that what everyone's doing here is absolutely amazing. So great job, everyone. Oh, sorry, that's my dog.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. We're coming up on our time, so I will end the discussion there. But I hope you all got a better feel for each other's projects. You guys are a cohort, right? And we want you to feel like a community. We want to build that community of public engagement practitioners. To follow up, Wyatt will send out a follow-up email to this meeting with some additional links besides the ones he sent in the chat. As resources for public engagement, there's like a report that recently came out of Research America of recommendations of how to incorporate public engagement training into universities. So that would be a good one for you guys to read. I think it's only like 8 pages. It's not that long, but things like that, it'll be useful for you guys to further you along as you progress through putting your curriculum together. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Microgrants email or to me, Wyatt, or Jenny directly. I think I had mentioned to a couple of you to email me directly so I can give you more information on or connect you with certain people. So definitely do that. Thank you for your time, and we will be in touch.